Hey everyone, today I'm going to be talking about the symptoms of a faulty idle air control valve. The idle air control valve is a small but important part of your engine that helps to regulate the idle speed. When it goes bad, it can cause a number of problems, including rough idling, stalling, and poor fuel economy. In this video, I'll go over the most common symptoms of a bad idle air control valve, and I'll also show you how to test it to see if it's the culprit. So if you're having problems with your car's idle, be sure to check out this video. Hey everyone, today we're diving into the world of idle air control valves, also known as IACV valves. These little guys play a big role in keeping your engine running smoothly, so it's important to know the signs of a faulty one. The first and most obvious symptom is often the dreaded check engine light. This light can come on for a variety of reasons, but a faulty IACV valve is a common culprit. If you see this light, it's always best to get your car checked out by a mechanic to diagnose the problem. Another telltale sign of a bad IACV valve is an erratic idle speed. This means your engine's RPMs fluctuate when you're stopped, often dipping too low or surging too high. This can be annoying and even dangerous, as it can make it difficult to control your car at low speeds. If your car is stalling frequently, especially when you're coming to a stop, it could be due to a faulty IACV valve. The valve helps regulate the amount of air that enters the engine at idle, and if it's not working properly, the engine can stall. In some cases, a bad IACV valve can prevent your engine from starting altogether. This is because the valve is responsible for providing the initial air needed to start the engine. If the valve is stuck closed, the engine won't get the air it needs to fire up. If you suspect your IACV valve is faulty, there are a few tests you can do to confirm. One simple test is to disconnect the electrical connector from the valve while the engine is running. If the engine speed changes, it's a good indication that the valve is working. However, it's always best to consult a mechanic for a more thorough diagnosis. So there you have it. 4 common symptoms of a faulty idle air control valve. If you're experiencing any of these issues, be sure to get your car checked out by a mechanic. A bad IACV valve can cause a lot of problems, so it's important to get it fixed as soon as possible. The first step in diagnosing a faulty idle air control valve is to check for any diagnostic trouble codes, DTCs, that may be stored in the vehicle's computer. These codes can provide valuable information about the specific problem with the valve. To check for DTCs, you will need a code reader or scan tool. Once you have the codes, you can look them up in a repair manual or online to determine what they mean. Once you have checked for DTCs, you should perform a visual inspection of the idle air control valve. Look for any signs of damage, such as cracks, leaks, or loose connections. You should also check the wiring harness for any damage or corrosion. If the visual inspection does not reveal any obvious problems, you can test the idle air control valve using a multimeter. To do this, you will need to disconnect the valve from the engine and then measure the resistance across the terminals. The resistance should be within the specifications listed in the repair manual. Before testing the IACV valve, you will need to disconnect the electrical connector. This will prevent any damage to the valve or the engine control unit, ECU. To disconnect the connector, simply locate the clip on the side of the connector and press it while pulling the connector apart. Once the IACV valve is disconnected, you can use a multimeter to measure the resistance across the terminals. The resistance should be within the specifications listed in the repair manual. If the resistance is outside of the specified range, the valve is likely faulty and will need to be replaced. If the resistance test is within the specified range, you can remove the IACV valve from the engine and check for carbon buildup or debris. Carbon buildup can prevent the valve from operating properly, and debris can cause the valve to stick. To clean the valve, you can use a carburetor cleaner or a similar solvent. It is not recommended to continue driving with a defective idle air control valve. A faulty valve can cause a number of problems, including rough idle, stalling, poor fuel economy, increased emissions. If you experience any of these symptoms, it is important to have the idle air control valve checked by a qualified mechanic as soon as possible.